This week on Flix Freaks, we review To All the Boys, P.S. I Still Love You, starring Lana Condor, Noah Centineo, and Jordan Fisher. Directed by Michael Fimognari. Lara Jean and Peter have taken their relationship from pretend to officially official when another recipient of one of those old love letters enters the picture. Okay, so this week we are reviewing To All the Boys That I Loved You Before, P.S. I Still Love You. This is a book series. Apparently, this is a book series. It contains 3 volumes written by Jenny Han, and they've been adapted to screenplays. The first one is just called To All the Boys I Loved Before, and then this one, part 2, is P.S. I Still Love You. And if you like this exciting news, apparently they're in post-production for a part 3, something like Always and Forever or something like that. So more to come. So what was your initial reaction, Tyler, of this film? What was your initial thoughts?
I went into this film fully expecting to just absolutely abhor the time that I was going to spend with it. Um, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. A lot more entertaining, gave me a lot more laughs than I thought I would give. Um, it was definitely a lot more decent than I was expecting.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of waited to the last minute to watch this, to be honest, just because it's. I didn't want to watch it. I flat out just didn't want to watch it. I'm not interested in love stories, you know. You got to figure it's like I'm a 40-plus-year-old guy, and I grew up in the 80s with Schwarzenegger and Stallone, and nobody got, arms chopped off, and there's no monsters and aliens from other planets to destroy or anything like that. And so yeah, I was not interested in watching this, and it surprised me. I found myself drawn in, and I actually had never heard of this book series before, so I actually had to watch part 1. So this is almost like a part. I had to watch part 1 in order to watch part 2 to understand what was going on.
Yeah, I almost didn't watch part 1 because I texted you before and I was like, so it's one of those weeks. Um, so I almost didn't watch part 1. I'm kind of glad I did. I would have been
Yeah,
a
I mean,
lot more lost.
I actually really appreciated. So as far as the plot, this is a great continuation of part 1, where a lot of films, when they make a sequel, it's a whole new chapter, yes, but it almost feels like it's a whole new standalone movie, where this one is a true continuation of part 1, and I'm going to assume that part 3 is going to be an actual continuation, development of the characters in their lives into more of this story from part 2.
Like you were saying, it does feel different because it was directed by different people, wasn't it?
It was the first film was actually directed by someone else, and then the guy who did the DP work for the first film stepped in, and I guess he did the directing and the DP work for this film, part 2. And then what IMBD is actually saying is he is actually doing the directing and the DP work again for part 3. So it's nice because I think it's going to have that continuity to it, having the same filmmaker directing but also doing the DP work throughout the series. What did you feel about the plot itself, the whole overall story?
Watching the first film, it's kind of like a complete story, and you wouldn't know where to continue that story. But part 2, they continue um, they continue it quite well.
Yeah, I liked how this continued as well, because part 1 basically ends on a happy ending, almost like that happily ever after thing, which is nice. And this left off. It's like, well, what happens after the happily ever after ending? Where does it go from there? And we get to see that with these characters. It's like it starts off really nice, and obviously going through the 3 acts and going through the hero's journey and whatnot, their relationship is going to get strained. Spoiler there, their relationship is going to get strained, and then they have to figure out how to work that out, if they're going to even work that out. So, who do you feel that would enjoy this movie? Who is this movie intended for? Who's the target audience?
It does touch with touch base with some pretty serious topics, like like parents splitting, or a parent dying, or um, like teenage pregnancy, people like older teens.
We're talking like, mid high school, freshman, sophomore, and older, all the way through college. Girls, I'm sure that's the intended audience, but the thing of it is, I think that if you really look for, I think older people could enjoy this as well. So, for example, even my generation, so if moms are watching it with their daughters, I think the moms could actually enjoy it. And the reason being is because if the moms grew up on like again the 16 Candles or those type of movies, those John Hughes genre movies, as teenage love stories back when they were teenagers and they were young, I think they could actually appreciate something like this as well, because it does deal with love and it does deal with the struggles that a teenage girl and boy may have with relationships and learning about that. For example, Laura Jean had mentioned, it's like, I've never had a boyfriend. How many times did she say it? It's like, oh, I guess I didn't catch that in the girlfriend handbook. I don't know what I'm doing, that type of thing. So I think this is actually, there could be some valuable lessons also as well for high school kids and college kids who are struggling with relationships. There was just a lot to this movie, and I think it really could fit a lot of genres. But I think the main target, obviously, is probably girls 15 to 25. And what would you give it after having sat through two of these films? What would your Netflix rating be?
Give it a thumbs up.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. I'm going to give it a thumbs up myself, even though I was hesitant to watch it because it's like, dude, this is a high school girl movie. Why do I want to watch it? And I watched it by myself, too. I didn't even watch it with any girls. So as pathetic as that sounds, I still give it a thumbs up because overall, I still thought it was a decent production. Overall, I think I'm sure it didn't have a huge budget from Netflix to produce this, but this is a solid series that I think is going to help Netflix on a certain target market, especially the fact that they've already successfully had two now, and it looks like they're going to have a third one later on. I don't think review critics are going to necessarily like this film, but hey, they're review critics. What do they really know, right?